Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I am Nerdarchy Dave, and today I'm hanging out with Willy. How are you doing, sir?
What is good? How's it going?
Good. You're a creator over on the DMs Guild, as well as you have an actual play podcast going on. You want to tell me about those things a little bit and where people can find you? The elevator pitch, if you would.
Sure thing. I am Willy. You can find me at the Willy Boo, usually on. Oh my goodness, I've got this going on over here too. Here we go. Cool. Uh, yeah, I'm mostly on Twitter, fun posting a lot. But for the most part, you can find all of my work over at DM's Guilds, and we've got our game, The Shadows We Cast, which happens every Thursday over on my friend's Twitch channel. We're gonna be playing tonight, so we're all gearing up for that now too.
Nice. You said that's been going on for about 8 weeks.
8 weeks. Tonight is episode 8, and they're already ready to storm a big castle. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to run that.
So wait, when you run that game, are you running stuff from your DM's Guild content, or are you running original stuff, or
So
published
what
stuff?
I'm so what's kind of fun about the Shadows We Cast is that what I'm doing is running through a bunch of just sort of the published books. Like right now, we're doing Minds of Fandelver, but with a bunch of different twists on top, including stuff that's from my published content. In fact, last week they met a meme frog person. Don't worry about it. But there's a huge meta narrative that's kind of unfolding, and I don't think the players realize it yet. But a lot of this has kind of happened before, and it has to do with the fact that these are published books that people have played before. So I'm excited to kind of explore that.
Like some kind of like timey wimey stuff, or
More or less.
nice.
Early on, they met Sir House from the book house, and he's kind of watching them steadily from the shadows, being all like, what's kind of weird is that you've all done this before. So I want to make sure that everything is happening the way I've seen it recorded. And I won't interfere, but, give me a little report at the end.
A little bit of the Watcher going on.
Yeah.
Nice. Uh, have you run any other stream games or podcasts before?
No, but I've appeared on the Big Dungeon show as Moss for a different game other than D&D. And then I was also Jericho on Tales from the Mist on the D&D channel. So I'm getting my feet wet in streaming.
Nice. Uh, how do you find DMing for an audience as opposed to just DMing with your friends or pickup game or whatever?
It feels a lot faster because you're managing expectations. Like you want to make sure things are staying exciting, but you have a little bit of room to breathe in. So, you're kind of keeping a steady eye on the chat as well as your players. I don't know, it's a juggling act. But it feels it's exciting. I like it a lot. But it's definitely different from playing at home when you're kind of just moseying along with your friends, and, like getting into little sidebars here and there. So,
Yeah, I feel like just the kind of the act of playing online, even if it's whether it's streamed or not, just tends to like focus and zoom in on the game more so than like in an in-person game.
right.
The like I mean in-person games like for us anyway, it's there's the game and just messing around and dick jokes and whatever and goofing off and people getting up to either use the restroom, grab something to drink, grab something to eat. Where when you're playing online, like everybody is just in the game, and I actually feel like you get more gaming done.
It's true. And both of them have their pluses and minuses too. Like, especially if you're playing in a live stream game where you have webcams, so you still get that sort of expression there, and you're able to read players' feelings on the matter. You have that extra layer of acting to it. But when I'm playing at home, I like to get up out of the chair and start kind of getting faces a little bit, and that tactile bit is what I miss.
Yeah,
As soon as we get that, so
yeah. I mean, both me and Ted tend to DM standing up, so 'cause it feels a lot more engaging.
yeah,
But that being said, when you play online, you're like right here, and you're in the camera, and everyone else is kind of in their camera, so it kind of focuses it in that way. And they're both good, like you said, and they're just two different experiences.
pretty
Um,
much.
in person to me, a lot of times that's more about like hanging out with my friends and the game is just something that kind of happens. And online it's like just about the game, and hopefully what we try to do anyway is like spend some time before and after the game to kind of like just hang out.
Yeah, because you kind of get it out of the way and you're able to sort of separate the experience, I guess. If you isolate the game part, you get a little bit more engaged into it. I have a little bit of a word mumble, excuse me.
It's okay, no worries. Um, so the big product that you have over on the DM's Guild is the Book of House.
Look up house, yes.
Want to dive into that a little bit?
Right. So that was kind of the thing that me and Leon kind of jumped straight into DM's Guild last year. And generally speaking, it is sort of a rule supplement, more about racial options, subclass options, combat considerations, a bunch of different little rules to kind of spice up your gameplay and to give you little creative sparks for your own content. So while there isn't necessarily an adventure involved, there is an overarching story about the author, Sir House himself, and how he's kind of taken to Faerun after being in Barovia for so long. There are not epic, legendary foes, if you will, with some sort of, how do you describe it? Encounter ideas for you to kind of take that into your own hands. And it was just sort of a fun experience learning how to create content for DM skill, learning how to make a book, learning how to write. Yeah.
What do you have a favorite of those like epic foes?
So one of them is the one that, in fact, I didn't design myself. It was actually pitched by a friend. His name is Joyless Reagan. And Joyless Reagan is actually one of our clown race, the Clon. And he's kind of like a mix of Jigsaw with just generally creepy clown vibes, if you will. And what's excellent about Joyless Reagan is he's very impossible. And he's constantly either floating there in the back of your minds, he's antagonizing you in your dreams, he has stretchy arms, he's doing everything he can to kind of just unnerve you.
Oh my god, stretchy arms! I love it.
Yeah. And that's
that definitely sounds like a lot of fun. So you said creepy clown vibe. So does he break out like any of the other clown tropes?
So we kind of explore that a bit because the first chapter of the Book of House is the clowns themselves, and generally how their society is formed, sort of what their mentality is, the main narrative that goes behind the clowns overall, and he embodies sort of those negative aspects. So yes, they do have the ability to stretch or to expand their skin. They're super durable, mostly for sort of pratfalls and what have you. And when you have this being who cannot die, is able to kind of stretch and deform his body in a Beetlejuice sort of fashion, it plays into the whole creepy clown kind of vibe, in a way that I guess people are expecting, rather than the first part of the book, which is sort of, oh, hey, these are really cool people. They aren't creepy clowns at all, so on and so forth.
So Lisa wants to know, what lesson have you learned from designing the Book of House? Is there anything you would do differently now?
Budgeting. Basically, when we were building it out, we were kind of doing it as we go, and making sure that we have a budget and a scope in mind at the start of the project versus midway through, make future projects a lot easier and a lot faster to put out too, because we kind of had to squish testing in towards the end, and I definitely wanted a bigger testing period for a lot of the content in there. But I think budgeting is a big aspect for bigger projects.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that for sure. Also, Barry Leone, why did it have to be clowns?
Why not clowns? Generally speaking, when we were designing the clone, I was taking a lot from sort of my own identity, and I do see myself as a clown in more ways than one. But it was just sort of a fun experiment. Well, instead of a class of people, well, what if it was a race, and what comes out of being a clown race? And kind of following through with that narrative led to a very, it was fun to create, and it was fun to kind of see people's reaction to that creation.
Any inspiration from Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
A little bit. Um, there are a couple of references to sort of the horror flicks, um, just kind of sprinkled in there. Um, trying to remember one example in particular that was really fun. Oh, there's a sidebar. It has a really nice picture in it, but basically about Spanish cuisine. And what they're basically explaining is this idea that they've created the hamburger in Faerun.
Uh huh.
Just kind of mentioning Ronald McDonald without
Without mentioning Ronald McDonald. You don't want to mess with that clown. He will F you up.
Ronald Serves Billions is a very powerful clown. You do not want to deal with Ronald.
For sure. So with you said mentioned other games that you've guest appeared. You also mentioned. Oh no, that's never mind. My brain just went in a different direction.
I actually remember the name of that game too. We were playing Mutants in the Night by Orion, so that was really cool.
Nice.
And I got to be Moss, who was this big boy, super strong world breaker.
You said Tales of the Mist, and for some reason my brain registered City of Mist, and I'm like, wait a minute, those are not the same. They're completely two different things.
No, that was a 5e game. Still a 5e game. I just finished my guest appearance.
Are you play? Do you play many other RPGs?
I'm trying to break into other ones. Like I want to play a little bit more sci-fi and what have you. But a lot of my focus has been on D&D. Leon and I were playing Beak, Feather, and Bone, which is a indie game, in particular about building out a little crow town, and stuff like that is really exciting. And we kind of take whatever we build and put into our own world. So.
Yeah, I mean, we are very D&D centric. We try and branch out here and there. Most of it is just time, right? Just having the time to do it.
Exactly.
You mentioned you have a full-time gig as well as doing the DM guild stuff, and then when you add in a stream and gaming, quickly time becomes a commodity that there's not much of.
Yeah, it's frustrating because when you want to kind of wind down from D&D with a game of D&D, you're like, oh, I'm just doing more of this. Leon especially, they're running games for people professionally, and then we have a little one-on-one game that we kind of use to just play whenever we're up to it.
Yeah. Nice. So do you have a home game that's ongoing?
Not currently. Basically, the Shadows we cast is sort of my home game at the moment.
Something wrong with that. Sometimes your home game has to be away from home or wherever it is.
Yeah.
But that is one of the cool things also about gaming online is that you get to play with people you would never normally get to play with because
it's really cool. This whole thing has opened up my world. So.
Yeah. So, how long is the podcast going to be going? Is there a plan?
I don't think we've really talked so much about seasons. It's currently still just an ongoing thing. Like every week, oh, let's do it. But who knows? I'll have to talk to Chelsea.
Yeah. So when this one, if this one ends, would you do another?
Probably.
Yeah.
Fill that void. Maybe even start up a second one alongside of it, depending on how much stamina I build up.
Where's the game taking place? Are you using a campaign setting, your homebrew?
Yeah. Right now we're in the middle of Mines of Phandelver, so it is in Faerun, the Forgotten Realms. But they might spin out of that, and I guess it depends on what actions they take in the middle of realizing, oh, hey, the huge meta narrative is going on.
Is that your preferred setting, Forgotten Realms?
It's the one that I know the most at the moment. Like I like Eberron. It's actually got a really nice flavor to it. And back when I was collecting books for 3.5, Eberron was my favorite setting to kind of split through all the pages of. So I have a special place in my heart for it, but I need to actually jump into it more and get the same vocabulary that I have for Faerun.
Yeah, I spent a lot more time with Eberron than any other campaign settings, just because it was different.
Yeah.
I don't feel like there's like huge differences between say Faerun or Greyhawk, Orith, I should say. It's like or Dragonlance Kryn. They're all very similar. Just change the names and faces a little bit.
Pretty
Where
much.
where Eberron, they've got trains and they've got airships and the dragonmarked houses and magic is kind of everywhere. So it's definitely a different feel.
It goes out of its way to kind of set itself apart, and I really like that.
And halflings riding dinosaurs. I mean, how can you
Yeah.
go wrong with that? Um, Although they didn't stretch themselves too much with the drow, they just moved from spiders to scorpions. So
They're still there.
they're still there.
And in a way, it's kind of a good way for people to kind of dip their feet into something a little bit familiar, but then just kind of get blasted in the face by the halfling on a dinosaur and the robots just kind of clunking around.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, that makes me think of Theros, the mythical odysseys of Theros. I just started looking at that, and they have a way to like turn everybody into basically robots. So,
wait, what?
yeah.
I've been very patiently waiting for the hardcover. I know that all the digital content came out, and I'm looking at it, but I'm like, I want to see it in my hands to really kind of rock it.
That alternate cover looks so good.
Oh my god, entirely my aesthetic.
Yeah, I've been like on the alternate covers. I've been kind of like hit miss. Like I didn't like the Xanathar's one as much, but I love the Volos and all the other ones. And this one looks amazing.
It's got that sort of nebula vibe to it that
Yeah.
I was actually just geeking out about on Twitter earlier this week or last week. Time doesn't make any sense. So it was sometime recently.
Well, it's kind of funny too, without giving away too much. Like just from the little bit I've looked at it so far, it's like I've heard the complaint that 5e is too much like you're playing a superheroes game with D&D, right?
Sure.
So it's kind of like Wizards of the Coast. Oh yeah, really? And then they were like, just turned the dial.
They leaned in.
Yeah. They turned the dial up to like 20.
Now you are blessed, chosen by the gods.
Yeah. You're like, you thought this was superhero. Let me show you what that really looks like. What is your play style? How do you like to run games?
It's very loose. Like generally I open up the floor for, okay, you want to do whatever you want that not necessarily is in the rules. Talk it out for me, see if you can explain it. And then from there I'm like, okay, give me this, and that check, and we'll see what happens. And I like being that liberal because that also gives me the liberty to be sadistic. I believe it was 2 weeks ago on the stream. They were visiting sort of this spooky zombie infested encounter. And it was the cleric who wasn't too sure if he had a channel divinity to turn the undead. And I told them straight up, if you had used that, I would have thrown something stronger at you. And you're welcome to kind of know what that is. But otherwise, let's play it out as is. And I almost threw a giant skeleton at them if they had actually turned away all the time.
Do you have a sweet spot for levels in the game?
I like tier 2 the most. Generally 5 to 9. You already have a bit of flavor. You have a lot of your abilities on the table, and you're using them in ways to kind of throw me off guard. And I like that level of surprise, but I'm still able to challenge you.
Yeah, I agree. Like generally, when I run fan games, I do them in the 4 to 7 range. That seems, and level 5 is really nice, is because it's like everyone has got their thing, right? If you're a wizard, you can now throw a fireball. If you're a fighter, you get more than one attack. It feels right. But unlike the upper levels where, I ran an adventure for like 17th level characters, and part of it was just like they had to travel up a mountain. And the one character's like, I cast Wish and just wish herself to the top of the mountain.
Done.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
When we were doing tier 4 testing for Book a House, I think it was my first or second time running an epic level sort of adventure just to kind of test out people's abilities. And it was a mess. Everyone throwing off their special spectacle abilities. It felt like watching Devil May Cry or Bayonetta play out in front of you. It's still fun,
Yeah.
but it's very hard to like keep them engaged at that level.
Yeah, as a DM, challenging them definitely becomes much more difficult. So Lisa wants to know, what's your favorite house rule as a DM or a player?
My favorite house rule. I don't know if I have one in particular. Oh, you got me pausing now. Lisa, what are you doing to me? Generally speaking, my favorite house rule is, oh, hey, if you want to talk or do something else in the middle of battle, just let me know what it is. And normally I'll let it slide. Like, oh, hey, you're pulling an item out of your pouch, or you're making a potion, you're giving a potion to someone else. I'll make that into a bonus action as an action in particular, kind of speed up sort of the minor things that aren't the actual, like, combat with the enemies. So that encourages more other actions happening in battle.
Yeah, I've seen that happen quite often. With that rule in particular, we've adopted that one. One of like our big ones is like our Dragonborn. Their breath weapon's a bonus action, not an action, because
that's cool.
Yeah, you know why? Because like they're like the weakest PHB race, yet everybody loves them and they're kind of cool. But what happens is like that ability doesn't scale enough for them to use it as an action. Eventually, it gets to the point, and usually it's probably around 5th level that it's like, if they do pretty much anything else, it's going to be more efficient than using their breath weapon.
Exactly.
So so that was one of the things we kind of did, and then
I might make a note of it.
Yeah, I mean it's an easy tweak, and you know what, the Leonin in Theros, they have a roar ability, which is a bonus action. I was like, I feel like we were heard.
It's a bonus action. Okay,
yeah.
I thought it was literally just dragon, like it was the breath weapon. But okay, cool.
Yeah, they have a roar ability that frightens, and it's a bonus action. I'm like, that's cool because this means this ability will never suck, right?
Yeah.
You don't grow out of it, and that was our thing with Dragonborn. It's like they grow out of their breath weapon, which I feel like was one of the cool things why someone became a Dragonborn to begin with, and then you get up to like 10th level, and you're like Puff the Magic Dragon, or you can just go berserk on someone and slash them apart. So which do you do?
Fun fact, in one home game that I played with Leon, I was playing a Dragonborn, but really it was a giant automaton, which is one of those musical things with the faces.
Okay.
Just a little clockwork guy in a giant trench coat, and basically his breath weapon was sort of a sonic blast. And I really only got to use it maybe 3 times in battle. So I agree. If that was a bonus action, you'd see Tutan tooting all over the place.
The first game I ran for 5e, my brother played a wild magic sorcerer Dragonborn.
Yes.
But he's like, hey, can I not have a specific color? And so the way we played it was like he had this like kind of like this like off like pearl white colored skin that would change colors. So every time he was hit with a energy type, he would randomly roll to see what his resistance was. And then every time he uses a breath weapon, we would do the same.
A scaly mood ring.
Yeah, pretty much.
That a lot.
Basically. And so we were going with the premise that he had some kind of like disease or curse. And it was also tied to his wild magic as well. So
cool.
Yeah, definitely some fun moments. Like during one of the games, he wild surged and he got polymorphed into a sheep. And we had 2 goblin rangers in the same group that were had entertainer backgrounds, so they were playing juggalos. I didn't even know what a juggalo was.
They were juggalos! Yeah!
Gobbleos. We called them gobbleos. But I didn't even know what a juggalo was until they decided to play these juggalo goblins in my game.
Whoop, whoop, my brothers!
Exactly. And that's pretty much how it went. So he gets polymorphed into a sheep. So what do? Mount him and begin riding him around the battlefield.
Oh, that's so good!
Which, he's a sorcerer and a diplomat, so he doesn't want to be on the battlefield. So they're making opposed checks against him with their animal handling to make him do what they want. Yeah. Wild magic can be fun.
What I actually just kind of ripping off of that for a bit. Yeah, the Dragonborn in the book is a little bit weaker, but because it gives you an opportunity to kind of do cool stuff with that. It's like, okay, I'm going to push this idea a little bit further. Now they are a mood ring. Now you can just kind of change the resistance from time to time. And I like playing with those little opportunities to kind of snipe in with your own ideas. So.
Yeah, and I guess as a channel, as like personalities, we break things down by mechanics oftentimes, and we'll like rip on things for being weak or underpowered or suboptimal. But then, like
Right.
in our games, we play those things all the time
Yeah,
because as far as game, like fun and optimal aren't the same things.
exactly.
As long as,
Like just because you're trashing on like how viable it is doesn't mean you're not going to have fun playing.
so and like you said, there's opportunities to fix things and change things. Like we've always found it weird that almost all the races have dark vision except for Dragonborn. Literally from
Oh,
dragons.
I heard that they just added dark vision to the Tritons.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So now they're only just slightly worse than Sea Elf rather than completely worse than Sea Elf.
Yeah. Like that when they first came out of all those guys, we're like, they live at the bottom of the ocean. You can't even light a torch. So yeah, that kind of stuff. What are you gonna do? It gives us something to talk about anyway.
Exactly.
So Dave wants to know: theater of the mind or tactical?
Both. Generally speaking, yeah, you might be adjacent to that creature within a 5 foot square, but tell me where you are within that 5 foot square, and explain the situation for me. Generally speaking, I am a lot more comfortable these days with theater of the mind, especially because we don't really have a table set up at home. But playing on Roll20, it is kind of fun to kind of see tactically where everyone is, and it changes up the gameplay.
When you play in a home game, do you usually put out the battle map, use terrain and stuff, or is it theater of mind there too?
Mostly theater of the mind, although we do have those little marker board battle mats that you kind of click together. So they're tiny little bricks, not bricks, squares.
Mm-hmm.
That's a square. Yeah. And we expand out as necessary.
So like the modular terrain,
Yeah.
kind of. Yeah, I mean we kind of do like a combination. It's like mostly theater of the mind, and if a complex battle pops up, then we might throw some minis on the table
Exactly.
and stuff
It's
like
like,
that.
okay, this might need a little bit more involved, which
Yep.
is especially important if you're a rogue too. It's all like, okay, what's on the battlefield right now? One, it's easier in theater of mind to just kind of make a tree appear, but also it's nicer to have just sort of tree things drawn on the map.
So Dave wants to know. I see a cool ship in the background, too. Is it a mini?
Yeah, this is from the Ghost of Saltmarsh. That was it a birthday gift from my group? I don't know, but at one point we were gonna have sort of sailing adventures. We did a little bit in Out of the Abyss with smaller boats on the Dark Lake, and I'm also just a pirate person in general. I've got the books and what have you, and I want to do a full-on pirate campaign at one point. So it's nice to have this as a reminder to kind of get in.
Your group must really like you. That's not an inexpensive birthday gift.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. But that was from your. Yeah.
So Ted actually ran a pirate hunting one shot at sea. We did this fantasy cruise a few years back, and so anytime we get together where there might be fans, we're always willing to run a game. So he ran a pirate hunting game on at sea. So that was kind of cool.
And how do you blah 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 blah? How did you guys handle naval combat and stuff like that? Because that's always been like the interesting stuff that I kind of do on the cuff of my shirt.
I I don't think there was any like I don't think there was, or if there was, it was like as they were closing, and then it went quickly to ship. I think that happens a lot in a lot of D&D games.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier now because you do have, with the Salt Marsh, Ghost of Salt Marsh, You have more rules for that kind of stuff. Also, Guy from How to Be a Great Game Master also put out a nautical adventures book. He's like,
Oh,
yeah, he was like, oh, this game needs a thing, and so I'll make it. And then as he was putting it out, Ghost of Saltmarsh came out.
it's like, well, now mine's a nice alternative. Check this out, fellas.
Yeah. Now you have options. Matter of fact, I think I have his book over there somewhere. It's not far away. In the stack of D&D books. So what is it that you like about the idea of a nautical campaign?
I just really like that swashbuckling aesthetic. Generally speaking, you are moving on uneven terrain. Your terrain could completely break, or the hazards could change at any given moment. In fact, I'm remembering right now from that Out of the Abyss session where we were using boats and what have you. The wizard in the group, Dogma, was basically using Fireball to basically cause all of the other ships coming in to explode. And then all of those encounters kind of just went into the sink. And while, yes, there's less monsters on the field, it was exciting. I like that uneasiness of being on the water. I think it's a good way to sum it up.
Black powder, yay or nay?
I'm fiddling with it. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago on the Shadows We Cast, we kind of introduced the concept of gun, and it was a big deal. So,
yeah, it's really tough, and it is kind of like on the cusp there is whether to add it or not. Like you do ships, then you kind of like ships
you
are a
kind of
lot
have to have a cannon.
Yeah, ships are more fun with cannons. I mean, you can do ballistas and catapults, but it's just not the same.
Exactly. You need that sort of like the immediate explosions to come out.
I will say though, the downside of having cannons and not catapults is, it's much harder to shoot someone out of a cannon than it is to catapult them.
That being said, if someone wanted to put themselves into a cannon, I would not say no.
Well, okay. Improv that for me. What does that look like in your game? Someone wants to get in a cannon and shoot themselves to the other ship.
More or less, I'll be like, okay, you're gonna take some damage from this, but give me that acrobatics check to see how you land on the other side. What do you say as you're being fired across the water?
That should actually be a big part of it. And do you get a bonus for being a halfling or a gnome?
Oh, absolutely. You're a lot more aerodynamic, so you go even further, and then you're hitting into another enemy on the other side. Oh yeah, there's gonna be plenty of dice roll in that moment.
I mean,
that is too cool.
I mean, one of my favorite things that was introduced into 5e, I don't know if it was Storm King's Thunder or not, but the Goblin Huckers.
Wait, tell me more about that.
Oh, so basically, there's these ogres that they have these contraptions strapped to them that are basically catapults, and they use goblins as the ammunition. Armored goblins.
That would save me a lot of work, because normally I just have large creatures throw tiny creatures. If they actually had their own contraption, that would be really cool.
Oh, it's totally a thing. I just don't, off the top of my head, I just don't remember what book it was in, but yeah, like when so Chris Seaman is the artist that illustrated it, and when I must have ran into him at either Origins or Gen Con, and he's like, look, and he pulled out a miniature that they made of the Goblin Hucker, and he's like, this is so cool, I made this thing.
Oh my, that's the dream. If something I created kind of appeared in miniature form. I
mean,
yes, having Hero Forge is absolutely scratching that itch for me, but something that's mass produced, that would be amazing.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time playing with Hero Forge?
Oh, I'm constantly building out NPCs and whatnot, and I also just recently got the color tools, so it's a very nice habit to have. Bad habit, good habit.
Yeah, they sent us one of the promo pieces, and when Ted got it, he didn't really understand or know what they were doing, and he thought it was painted at first, and I was like, no, dude, they print them like that. which
Color printing.
I love because when third edition came out with the pre-painted minis, that was my jam because I do not
Yeah.
paint.
I like the idea of painting, but I also know the horror stories of just having mountains of unpainted miniatures just kind of daunting you from your closet. And I
Yeah.
don't want that. I don't need that negativity in my life. So,
There's that. And I'm not particularly good at painting minis. I literally was I was on a stream for painting minis for Realm Smith TV. Was the first time I even painted a mini, and it was just a nightmare. I like my idea of painting a mini would be like, can I just dunk them?
I think I've seen a YouTube video about dunk painting too. So,
Oh, there
or
you go.
miniatures.
That's right up my alley. If I ever had to field Warhammer army, I would just have to get the cans of spray paint and just like all of them, and done. I'm just not like I just don't like I just find that kind of stuff tedious. So
Oh,
like even like we were talking beforehand, and I worked in construction for quite some time, but
right.
like it was heavy construction, so all the tools are like really big. Like you really generally your all your tools they don't weigh ounces, they weigh pounds. We're using like sledgehammers and jackhammers and stuff like that, and and really like I drove a big truck. That was like the tool that I usually use. So yeah, that fine stuff, not for me. But it's
Painting is a
amazing.
dexterity tool, and especially when you have these big hands, it's very difficult to kind of get all the fine details that you want. So.
Yeah, the running joke was us doing a crafting channel, and it was the idea was like I would do it, and at the end of every episode, I'd have to be like rushed to the ER with things glued to me that weren't supposed to be, cuts, and it's just ugly. It'd be like the Tim Taylor of mini painting.
I would watch it.
This airbrush. What does it need? It needs more power. But now pre-painted and theater of the mind is the way to go for me. Like I said, in our early days we would do when we did tactical combat, we would just have a board we put out with just dice. We'd use D4s and D6s.
Dice. Okay. I remember playing with bottle caps too.
Oh yeah, that would work for sure. Well, it's funny. The internet likes to make fun of us because we'll like post pictures every once in a while, and we'll be using a dry erase board. And Ted will pull out, and I'll do the same thing. We'll pull out mechanical pencils and make our walls from that. And they're like, "What are they doing? Why are they doing that? It's literally a dry. You could just draw it."
Sure, but no, it adds to it makes it more tactile. That's the word.
Tactile, yeah. Actually, we just don't want to have to clean it. That's what it ultimately comes down to.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because that stuff like smudges, and then you can't get it off. It's just the our way ends up being faster. We used to do it with Kit Kat bars, like the miniatures. Like we had a bunch of leftover Halloween candy one year, because no one showed up, and we're just like putting that stuff out and using
They're storming
it for
the Kit Kat Tower.
Exactly. Yeah, and then eventually we get a new player to the group, and they'll be like, "Oh, I like Kit Kat. Can I have one of those?" And they've been sitting there for years, and we were terrible people. So we're like, "Sure." And that first bite, you just see their face.
You're committed. You got to keep going, my friend.
The rule is, if you eat the Kit Kat, you must start the Kit Kat. So how did you get started in gaming?
So it was through video games, right? Basically, I've been in a gaming household since my brother kind of locked me out of his room and then sprayed cologne in my eyes through the keyhole to kind of keep me out. And I'm like, no, I need to play more gaming from there. Fast forward to elementary school, and we did end up playing a little bit of D&D, not too much. But that's when we were playing with bottle caps because we didn't have any money. But then I left D&D and kind of went full into video games from there. And I decided from a very early age that I wanted to be a video game designer. Then come college, it's all like, okay, yeah, we're making a video game right now. It's me and Greg and several other people on this team. But also the call of D&D was getting louder. Kind of got back into the tabletop scene from there. And now it's consumed our entire lives. So.
It's a good way to have your life consumed, and the older brother macing you with cologne.
Yeah, I still will hold that over his head. That was rude.
Yeah, it makes sense. So Dave wants to know: do you go to conventions?
We were doing PAX Unplugged. It's really cool. And then we were also playing around with joining in on Gen Con. Just kind of getting more into the scene and meeting up with other people and networking. So yeah, definitely want to do that a lot more once we're allowed outside.
Yeah, I mean this year has been rough. I mean we were supposed to actually throw our first convention Halloween weekend, which you're local, so you'll have to make it over to Oaks, PA when we do eventually are allowed out and can do things. But
Oh, absolutely.
we postponed it until 2021. It's like 18 miles north of the city.
Not too hard to get to. And I have friends who are further south that'll probably absolutely be going, just independent of us going. So we'll have a whole crew to waltz in on there with you.
Nice. Yeah, like our vision is kind of like uh, TwitchCon or VidCon, but for RPGs. So we have an amazing lineup for this year. Hopefully, most of them will carry over to the following year. But we were super excited for that. But what are you gonna do, the Rona?
Exactly. Don't worry about it this year. Next year, we'll play it by ear.
Yeah.
But no one's holding anything against anyone right now.
Yeah. So this year I don't think anything's going on. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I know we were supposed to be doing D&D in a castle in September, and they finally canceled. Which I mean we kind of figured that was going to happen. So, but next year.
I know we signed up for the mailing list for D&D in the Castle when we went to PAX Unplugged last year.
Okay.
But it's definitely sort of on our bucket list to kind of do one of those things.
Did they have a table there?
I think they did, or some sort of affiliate, or not affiliate, but some sort of other company who does similar thing.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't remember seeing it. Huh. I'll have to check next time for sure because so I went to the very first one they had in France as a player, and then I went to the second one, Nerdarchy. We had a castle. They gave us a castle to play around with, which had kind of its own like interesting story because our original castle got seized by the bank, and they had to switch castles like in 2 days before or something ridiculous. Yeah, and then we were supposed to be running some tables this year, but next year I guess it's going to happen. So, but it's definitely cool to play just to get to check out a castle and go play D&D in other countries. So
right,
that's definitely a thing.
And that also adds back to again that tactile feeling. Even just being in that atmosphere really gets you into the game. So that's what I'm looking for the most.
Oh yeah, so like some of the DMs, what they would do is like they would do almost like these walking tours of the castles and like have different scenes in different parts of the castle.
Yeah.
Which is really cool and also presents other challenges as far as trying to game in a castle because there's certain
logistics. Yeah.
Yes. There's certain things you don't think about, like, how easy is it to hear each other or, interact and stuff like that. But yeah, like with the first year when I went, GM Tim, he, for one of the scenes, like he took us to the cathedral when we were using, the chapel. So he took us to the chapel when we had a scene in the chapel of one of his dungeons. So like that kind of stuff is pretty cool. Like you're kind of mixing tabletop gaming with LARPing at that point.
Yeah. Is it bad to kind of want that experience without diving full into LARPing? But also I want a LARP too. But, it feels a little bit more accessible to do it from a tabletop perspective.
I don't think so. I mean, Jeremy Crawford, he did that like excessively when he ran his games. And like they did one where they went into the cellar and the cellars were like really high but narrow, because I think like they were designed to where you should be able to get a horse through there.
Oh, I see.
But so you needed the height, but you only needed it to be a little bit wider. But it kind of illustrated like when the enemy casts the lightning bolt on them, and they're all standing in this corridor, and they're like, "Huh." They're like they could only be in a single file line, and there was nowhere to go to get out of the way.
You're gonna get hit. Whoops.
You're going to get hit by the lightning bolt. I and when I hear that, it kind of makes me want to bring back the old AD&D rules for lightning bolts. So, in originally it was like the lightning bolt would travel its distance, unless it hit an object. It would still travel its distance, but it would rebound.
Oh, I see. So, so you're just doing like those little laser light bouncy games then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Like, so Stefan Pogorny, when we were in the castle, ran a game of 1E for us, and it's when one of the characters did cast the lightning bolt, and it hit all the players that were like fighting near them, all the enemies, hit the wall and then bounced and then hit them all again.
That's perfect. And also, I would be so mad at that table.
Oh yeah, that was definitely the thing in 1E, where if you cast lightning bolt and you did not take into account the distances, you as the wizard could be fried by your own lightning bolt. And I think in that particular game, I do think the wizard had that happen. So,
won't someone please think of the wizards, including the wizard themselves?
Including the wizard themselves, yeah. Teflon Billy never bluffs. So, I don't know. Some of those old rules are kind of fun to play with and experiment, and they can be unforgiving, but at the same time, oftentimes they offered up some interesting options.
If you're coming to the table with those expectations, you can have a huge guess.
Yeah. Dave says Fireball was similar. Yeah, very much so. It would fill the space, depending on how big the space was.
Oh my goodness. I think it was Thinking DM who did an article about like how much space a fireball would take up in 5e, and the visuals that he included in that article were just chef's kiss.
Well, yeah, it's huge, especially like I don't know if you've seen any of the templates. You put out the templates and they're like enormous.
Yeah.
And I forget. There's another circular template. Maybe it's for Meteor Swarm. That's like, oh no, it's not for Meteor Swarm, because that might be like a mile or something ridiculous. Or is the range a mile, but the radius is just really big.
Like, do you have to unfurl that?
Yeah. It's just like, but when you see those things on the table, and it takes up like most of the space, it's pretty impressive. See, now I kind of need to know how big a meteor swarm really is. I think the range is a mile, but the
Meteor Swarm 9th level, the range is 1 mile, and then it does it within a 40-foot radius.
Yes.
So that is an 80-foot like area. My god.
It's a double fireball.
Yeah.
Which is insane. We use the templates from Arknight a lot of times. So we have them handy to put out, and you're just like, well, that's most of the battle map.
Well, everyone got hit by that, so let's keep going.
Since we're speaking of spells, you have a particular spell that's your favorite?
My favorite spell would have to be Minor Illusion, hands down. In particular, I love the illusion spells, and I love when a DM kind of gives you the flexibility to get creative with it. So yeah, especially when you're playing an illusionist wizard, where you can add both sound and visual to the image at the same time. I just had so much fun.
Yeah, one of my favorite characters, or conceptually, I don't think I really played him 5e, is definitely the Forest Gnome Illusionist.
Yes.
And the fact that you, as an illusionist, you get that extra bump to it. It's tricky though. It really depends on the DM. Like the School of Illusion is either the best or worst wizard tradition you can take.
Exactly.
I must say, after having played a wizard to 20th level. Steel Wind Strike thematically is one of my favorites.
I mean, just the name alone, you say that you feel cool at the table.
It's so, and it, I'm not even into anime, but that spell is so anime cool. I played a War Wizard, Eldritch Knight. So definitely there was more than one occasion where I action surged to do that spell twice back to back.
Nothing personal, kid.
Yeah. What at that point you're just rolling. You're going to roll at least one crit, and it's just so much damage.
Definitely a good spell. I mean, I also like making my own spells where I see if there's an opportunity to do so. With necromancy can be good. We were kind of just playing around with ideas for what do good necromancy spells look like, and we ended up making a lot of different ones that looked like cinematic.
Are those in the Book of House?
No, that was a separate book. Although the Book of House also had a really cool spell. It was called Sir House's Incredible Mirror Bang, where if you got hit, you could make yourself look like the person who hit you and kind of give them like psychic damage that it's almost equal to or half the damage of the spell that they hit you with. But then also you could scale it up to level 9, where even though you get killed by it, it would still end up affecting them. And if you're getting killed at 20th level, then yeah, it's a lot of damage to happen out of nowhere. So,
was that a reaction?
pretty much, yeah.
The one of my other favorite tactics was to fireball myself, and then cast absorb elements. And and I've definitely done it where I've used like a super high spell slot because I was multi-class. I didn't actually have those spells anyway to cast. So then your next attack is, you're getting that extra fire damage for whatever spell level you used. And usually I would haste myself, so I had advantage on the save, and then you get resistance. So you're probably taking like a quarter of the damage. But everyone has to take the damage, and then
you're powering yourself up by blasting people away. That is so good.
Yeah,
I'm taking notes.
And when you have fighter levels, it is so much better because you have that action surge where you can do it all in the same round. There's no like build up; it just happens.
Oh, that is excellent.
Fun things to do. So the Book of M, we've got spells, we've got new races, you got some new magic items as well. You got a favorite?
Oh, out of the magic items, it was the Shovel of Unearthed Arcana. Sort of a play on the idea of Unearthed Arcana because it's kind of wildly new material.
Yeah.
But just giving users access to a very quick digging speed and the ability to kind of shovel stuff back at enemies was always really cool. And I also enjoyed the flavor of, a Shovel of Unearthed Arcana that was used by dwarves shows up once every month because Unearthed Arcana was releasing monthly.
Yeah.
So just everything that had to do with that magic item was a lot of fun to play with. And that eventually spun into inspiration for our big Chungus race, the Hillaby, which is basically a rabbit humanoid that could dig. So
I want to circle back. You had mentioned good necromancy because we often fight it with our viewers about necromancy and it being good. I am firmly in the camp if you animate the dead, you cannot also be good. Many people disagree with me, but I believe Raw actually supports my argument because when you animate the dead, you only ever make an evil creature. There is no other options.
Oh right, this will bring up the skeleton or a zombie. I didn't even consider that.
Well, all undead is evil. Pretty much anything. Right. Not all undead is evil, but all the undead that you could possibly create with any magic that you would get as a player is technically evil. Now, in your homebrew rules, you can do whatever you want in your home campaign, and sure. DMs can change whatever they want. But by Raw.
Now, here's the deal about that, though. Yes, necromancy typically brings back evil creatures, but then only good clerics can use resurrection spells. What school is that again?
It is so I'm not saying necromancy magic is evil. I'm saying necromancers that animate the dead.
I see. Okay, yeah, you're pinning it more on the person rather than the school itself. And I think
Yes.
that's where a lot of the communication kind of breaks down.
And is it necromancy? Because it's changed. It is necromancy. It absolutely is.
Mhm.
Um, but like even the school of healing or healing magic has changed throughout the editions. So I sometimes get confused on that a little bit.
I think there's life. I mean, not necessarily. There's the life cleric, but also
So, but yeah, it's evocation now
Ivok.
for
Yeah.
healing. So, what does good necromancy look like to you?
So it was kind of a thought experiment, right? Because I was always on the necromancy is a neutral school, so it was already good. But what does good necromancy look to anyone else? And what that turned into was, what are some support spells that we can include? Um, because that was always it was a fun book to put together because it's like, okay, putting myself into the chair of, oh, okay, I have to pretend to be someone who thinks that necromancy itself is evil. So what would appease me in that case? And one of the things we ended up doing was basically creating another type of resurrection, which came in the form of a person's echo. Where like, oh, hey, the physical body also still has memories implanted on it. And what you're doing is you're making a copy of that mind without desecrating the body itself. And now you have a new type of undead. Um, there was stuff like reattaching limbs, a new kind of healing spell that kind of exhausted you afterwards, which is a fun little joke. There was spells that are in here. Ectoplasmic blast, where you can kind of let your spirit out and go and grab people, which is kind of fun. Befriending undead, linking your health to another person, making someone older or younger, using yourself as a conduit so that other spirits can talk to people. Just other tools that you can add to your repertoire so that you aren't necessarily doing anything malicious, I think was the main goal.
Yeah, I think we did a video where we kind of like broke down necromancy by kind of like good, evil, neutral in terms, and basically all the cool stuff is essentially evil for the most part. But there's definitely good necromancy like speak with dead and things of that nature where it's not so bad. But my whole thing has always been like, well, yeah, it's like what is the Punisher thing? Like or the Batman thing. If you kill a murderer,
Right.
there's still you haven't lessened the number of murderers in the world, and the Punisher thing is that's why I don't stop at one. Um, but like like your necromancer is like, oh, I'm gonna liberate this town and I'm gonna use this army of undead to do it. But then he gets killed, right? So now you just have a bunch of evil undead running around eating people.
Right. It's a delicate balance, and there's a lot of responsibility in using necromancy. But it itself doesn't necessarily have to be bad. And what was kind of cool about running through Necromancy Can Be Good was that I had an opportunity to kind of run through like the history of necromancy in the real worlds and how it was used as just a way of communicating with the dead, and kind of got romanticized from there. Leon gave me a bunch of older material to kind of read through too, and it was fun putting it together.
Yeah, like definitely like the medium type character that communes with spirits.
Yeah.
There's in the Dresden Files. There's a character that basically does that, communes with spirits. I think it's called an Echomancer. And
Echomancer.
yeah, and like one of the cool things that he would do was like he could like bring a spirit into him and use like their abilities.
Yo. Okay. They took it a step further. I like that.
Yeah, so like one of his advisors was like I think an ancestor, which was like kind of like a Davy Crockett type character. So like if he needed to get physical, he would like suck that spirit into him, and then be able to use like that character's fighting ability.
That's awesome as a character concept overall. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. So there's definitely some cool things like that would be a lot of fun for sure. We are coming up on the hour.
Okay.
Final words before we head out.
Um, Nothing too much. I'm working on the meme frogs right now. They have their own name, and right now the biggest struggle is getting more testers. So that's all I've got to say about that.
Yeah. So are you looking for more testers? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think so. If anyone's interested in testing out some content, just hit me up.
And where would be the best place for that? Twitter? Somewhere
You
else?
can most likely find me at the Willy Boo on Twitter. Yeah.
Okay. And folks, as usual, there are links down in the pinned post or pinned comment. So you can just head there and follow Willie around the interwebs in a non-stalkery way, of course. And until I want to thank you for coming on and hanging out with me, Willie.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
It's always cool to get together and get nerdy with other nerds. So until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.
Peace out.